Hi, this is Reg Athwal. Welcome to another one of our episodes on our channel. And it's a real pleasure today to have a guest that I first met 15 years ago. And it's going to be part of our Next Gen Entrepreneurs series on our show. And without further ado, let me get into introducing our guest, Sushil Shamlal Wadhwa. And I hope I've pronounced that the correct way, Sushil, with your family name as well. But if you just look at the shared screen here, what a fantastic entrepreneur who's living the life. I'm jealous in a way, actually, because he gets a chance to be at all the best places in the world. But Sushil is an entrepreneur. He's an avid traveler, a luxury lifestyle and luxury travel influencer. He's definitely a speaker who talks about these areas around the world at many MICE conferences and events, and that's how we met 15 years ago. And apart from that, he's someone who works with VIP people at a very high level, entrepreneurs, large family businesses, as I deal with as well. He's traveled to 600 cities now in 78 countries. I thought I had done well getting to 65 countries, but wow, 78 countries. It stayed at 1,200 luxury hotels. Can you imagine that? Making him an authority in luxury events and travel industry. Outside of that, he is the founder of the Platinum World Group, a conglomerate now with interest in MICE, weddings, decor, entertainment, and luxury travel. And there's a lot more behind it, which I'm going to be asking him questions on. So without further ado, Sushil, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us. I hope things are good in India in your partial lockdown, or are you still on full lockdown right now?
Firstly, thank you so much, Reg, for having me on your show and for that amazing introduction. I think it's one of the best introductions I've ever had. And
you didn't pay me for it, and you didn't pay me for that. So that was a genuine introduction.
That's what I've heard the saying, the best things in life are for free.
Well, what a journey you've had. You know, it's a real pleasure. Like 15 years ago, I remember you starting off as a young entrepreneur. But you've got a great story because you're a next-gen entrepreneur. You run a family business with your wife. You started in a family business with your father. And basically, it's perfect for all of our viewers. So tell me, growing up, what was it like, with parents? How did your father influence you growing up?
So when I was really young, my father, they had kind of migrated to India from Pakistan during the partition, when India and Pakistan partition happened, as Sindhi community. And he came with absolutely no background of education or business whatsoever. And but when he moved to Mumbai and he started his life literally delivering food tiffins on cycles to students in colleges.
Yes.
And then gradually he opened something that we now know as dhabas, the low-end sort of restaurants for the lower income group, but many upper income group people also go there. And then gradually he got his opportunity to start a family restaurant in the early 70s. Yes. That was just after I was born. So in a way, I think I brought in some luck into his life as well. That from the time I arrived in his life, his business and his life started upgrading in every way.
And what do you think you picked up from him when it comes to entrepreneurial skills or abilities or training? How did he influence you? What do you think you picked up from him that's still with you today?
So one thing that I admired about him, that he used to work really, really hard. He used to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He used to be out in the market shopping for all the provisions and ingredients for the restaurant at 5 o'clock. And then at 6 or 7 o'clock, he used to be in the restaurant kitchen cooking them. And by 11 o'clock, he used to start his restaurant and used to be a sellout by 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And this is for a man with zero education qualification. Mm-hmm. Maybe he did his 4th grade. He could barely speak any English whatsoever. Whatever English he learned from his friends in Khalsa College or wherever he used to go and hang out with them to meet with, just to hang out and probably tease the girls there at that time or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing which he's kind of learned his English at. And when he started restaurants, he didn't have any formal training in the business. And that kind of inspired me that somebody with no education, with no knowledge of that particular industry, learned the ropes of the trade by working hard, morning, night, and made it a success. I mean, he managed to open up to 5 restaurants at his peak, I would say. And that's what inspired me to do my hotel management, so that I could take that 5 to 100. But as luck would have it, that after I finished my hotel management, I moved back to a city called Belgaum where he used to live. And in a year after that, I got married because I had a sort of a love marriage. During my college time, I met my wife. And it was kind of boring in Belgaum to run the family business of restaurants. And I started feeling that little, what do you say, restlessness, that I'm in a city where
that itchy feeling underneath the collar. Yeah.
Everybody knows me in this city as your son. You know, I need to make my identity, and I need to build it to a level where people will know you as my father. And I'm sure you'll also be proud of that day when people know you as my father than me as your son. And so after 3-4 years in Belgaum as part of the family business of restaurants, I kind of decided, I think I'm not going to grow here. And that's when I decided to move to Mumbai. And when I moved to Mumbai, I did, for 1 year, I was doing pretty much odd stuff. I was looking for restaurants. I got consultancy assignments for restaurants because I was already a hotel management sort of a graduate. So I did a few odd consultancy jobs for restaurants, hotels. And then I met somebody whom I knew at that time who was running a company that did parties out on boats. It was a novelty at that time. I'm talking about late 90s.
Right.
Where Bombay was just sort of the whole corporate culture, corporate events culture was picking up. And this particular company was down in the dumps and not doing well at all. Let's say the company was doing a business of 20 lakhs.
Okay.
And the owner was known to me, and he was a restaurateur as well. So I was actually in touch with him to start restaurants in Mumbai. And he said, listen, while we find a restaurant, why don't you join me as a partner in this company and start doing parties out in boats? It's something new. I don't have anybody managing that business. And I said, fair enough, let's start. And then for the first 5-6 months, I was like, this is not my scene, doing parties on boats. I want to run a solid business, which is daily income coming in and everything.
Yeah, you don't want to be known as just the party man. Yeah.
Exactly. But until we found something suitable, 6 months became 1 year. And then my clients started noticing that we're doing a good job with parties on boats. And we started getting big events. So we did events for MTV out on large barges and Channel V, and then for Citibank and HSBC and so on. Then one day HSBC asked us, can you do our big annual party, which was like 500 people at that time.
Yeah.
Which was a big thing because boat parties used to be 20 people, 50 people, 80 people, 100 people. Biggest one was 200 people. So I said, yes, of course we can do it. And then we went on and did their big event for 500 people with a theme and everything. Event management was fairly new at that time.
Actually, I want to come in and acknowledge you for a second, because there's a learning here. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who start businesses, and then as wealth starts to come in, they end up diversifying or getting involved in investment deals, which is outside their core. Okay.
Yes.
And what I like about what you've done with Platinum World Group is you've stuck to your core. Okay?
Yes.
You've added on other things, whether it's weddings or yachts or, other types of parties, conferences, but it's all part of the same ecosystem, isn't it? Was that intentional?
It is correct. So let's say corporate events, boat events for corporates led to corporate events in hotels on land. Then these events led to corporate events in different destinations in India, like Goa or Ooty and so on. So when I got a call from Citibank, said, listen, can you do a conference for us? I had no idea how to do it. I knew how to do events in the same city, but I didn't know how to go about booking travel and hotels. And at that time, the MD of Thomas Cook India was a good friend. So I asked him, I said, listen, I have a conference query. Can you help me with this as Thomas Cook? You do the travel and hotels and I'll do the event. And it happened. And we did the whole event. And then I realized it was not that difficult.
Yeah.
We just had to add an extra layer of booking travel and hotel arrangements, and the rest was the same.
Can I ask you, Sushil, I've got
Yeah.
so many questions I do want to ask you, but I want to go extreme here for a second. What's the most outrageous event you've ever done or project? And then what's the opposite where, you know, it was the worst experience as part of the journey?
Okay. So worst experience, I would say, has not been, it's been more because of nature's force. So one of the biggest events I did, which was for Star TV group in India.
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of changing identity from the blue logo to a red logo. And 1,200 people across Star TV India.
Mm-hmm.
We booked out a whole city called Ambi Valley, which is a 10,000 acre city.
Wow.
We had only about 400 odd rooms there. So we made sure that the Ambi Valley city bought 400, almost 350 extra beds, because they had only 50 extra beds, so that everybody could be in triple occupancy. And this was sometime in July. July is the peak of monsoon in India, in Bombay or in Lonavala. And when we were, so this was one of the biggest ticket events that we did. It was almost $1 million event, I would say, probably 10 years ago now, at that time. And it was absolute, and we had to set up like a big marquee for them. And we had like bungee jumping, so we had to get cranes from Bombay so that they could come up and jump from the crane and do bungee jumping. We had to set up a massive marquee where we had like a drum cafe session where there's a band from Africa that conducts drums, and all 1,200 people were playing drums together as part of the sort of a team building. It was a goosebump moment as far as the audience is concerned. So it was a beautiful event, magnanimous event, at the same time extremely challenging event, because the cranes that were coming for bungee jumping from Bombay, they couldn't turn on the ghats that led to Ambi Valley. And that was a big challenge. So somehow we had to send them back, get smaller cranes, a lot of challenge that happened to that. The marquee that was set up for them, the wind was so heavy and the rains were so heavy that the marquee got washed out, almost half of it. So we had to kind of, again, work overnight with all our construction laborers and make sure it's all done. And the client was seeing it was beyond anybody's control. I think even Superman couldn't have prevented it. And so somehow we managed to put that together. Everything was delayed by about 45 minutes to an hour. Our decor partners really rose up to the occasion and managed to put the whole thing together. It was like 3 nights, 4 days of absolute madness party, similar to the site convention that we met at. I'm guessing that was about the same size.
That's correct.
And the scale that we did this pretty much by ourselves as a company 10 years ago. But since then, we've done events in 75 countries now. So you can say in India, in the Middle East, we're probably a company with the highest international experience of doing events. I don't know of any other company that has done events in 75 countries.
Well, you've come a long way, that's for sure. So what percentage of your business would you say is corporate versus private? Families, you know, for weddings and things, and you know, what would you say is the split?
I would say the ratio is 60% corporate and 40% a private or social business, where we count weddings, anniversaries, engagements. But I think moving forward, it'll probably become 50-50. Maybe it might become 60% of the private business, because right now corporates will be a bit shy and wary of doing any events, especially because of COVID. So I'm guessing 2021, I will probably see a switch in the ratio. And 2022, I expect it to become almost 50-50.
So how do you see some people who have not heard of MICE would be meetings, incentives, conferences, and events, yeah?
Correct, yes.
Or some other words change sometimes. But if you take industry,
C becomes conventions also.
Conventions, great. So if you take this industry that you're you know, global expert in, and your company's done all these projects, with the coronavirus situation and what's happening, you know, in 2020, for those of you who are watching this video right now, what do you see as the changes around the entire conference events industry as a result of this crisis? What's going to permanently change? What is temporary? What new things are going to happen as a result of this for the future?
Okay. So this is purely a personal opinion. If you remember all the terrorist attacks of the past, whether it was 9/11 or whether it was the 26/11 in Mumbai, they brought about a change in the way we travel. There came an X-ray machine, there came a huge layer of security before which you have to screen everything and go through. Now, health is the new safety.
Right.
So besides the layer of the X-ray machine and the metal detectors, the additional layer that's going to be added before that, pretty much at hotels, at restaurants, at airports, will be the layer of sanitizing the person in some way or the other. It could be a UV chamber, it could be a chamber with mist and UV, depending on which government allows what. It'll be sanitization of your hands, your shoes, everything, the way you walk through those tunnels or chambers. It'll be mask will almost become a compulsion in the public spaces for quite some time till there is a vaccine found, my guess is.
Right.
Although wearing a mask, I find personally very suffocating. But I think as in a public space,
Well, it's becoming trendy as well, though, isn't it? People are starting to brand their masks and everything. Yeah.
But I know some entrepreneurs who started printing your lower part of the face on the mask, so that your face looks kind of complete. It may look a bit Frankenstein-like.
Oh dear.
And some are coming up with various designs on the mask, whether it's your favorite superhero logo or says, "Hi, I'm Sushil," on your mask is printed. Yeah. Something like that. So a lot of entrepreneurs are coming up with these ideas. I also contemplated that very briefly, but then I realized too many people already at this, so I don't want to get into a zone where too many people are doing something. And then the way hotels will work is going to be, especially big events. I think big events are going to take a bit of a beating for the next 12 months, in my opinion, because most corporates have realized the cost benefits of not going to office, of work from home, of not doing conferences and events. So they save on travel, they save on hotel, they save on meals, they save on a whole lot of things. But they miss out on the human interaction, which I think is the biggest plus, which I don't think Zoom calling or video calling will ever replace.
No, it won't. So, I mean, it's been there from day one, hasn't it? As human beings, exactly. we need that connection. Yeah,
exactly. So there's nothing like a power of a handshake or sometimes a hug or partying together, drinking together. This is where real relationships are formed. If you remember, our relationship 15 years ago in Barcelona started over an evening party. I mean, I attended your session, which was amazing. I mean, unleash the power of your DNA. I still have it memorized in my head to a great extent, and I practice it almost on a daily basis, especially all the 9 pillars of the lessons you give.
Fantastic.
And but the real connection happened when we went out partying.
That's right.
That's when we got to know each other better, and we connected on social media, and then we stayed in touch after that.
When we were young men, is that right?
Exactly. So I'm guessing, the euphoria or the paranoia rather of COVID may be another 6 months, maybe another 12 months, maybe another 18 months. But once the vaccine is out and it starts getting administered to many people, then people will automatically start coming out. And what I expect for our business, which has currently come to absolute zero, I expect a huge pent-up demand building up already. Like I can sense from my clients who are corporates, who are individual people who travel or have their weddings or anniversaries, they are dying to go out, they're dying to party, they're dying to celebrate.
Yes.
And they all have enough money, especially the people I know. There are a few people who've lost their jobs. If my business is zero, I'm still paying salaries to my team. Of course, we've enforced a pay cut and all because we need to stay afloat.
Yes.
But the point is that people still have enough savings, especially in India. It's not a heavily over-leveraged country, unlike many Western countries that we know. So I know that the minute there is some level of confidence that people come into and herd immunity starts kicking in, then I expect all businesses to boom, whether it's hotels, whether it's travels, whether it's events, restaurants, gyms, everything are going to sort of come back with a vengeance. So I'm absolutely. Yeah.
So do you see a hybrid model where now that people have experienced virtual gatherings, virtual conferences, virtual meetings, saving money as a result, and then people want that human connection again? Do you think there could be a new model that starts to get created, bringing both together? Uh,
They could do that, because my guess is that they will probably have layers of people. You know, there could be list A, B, C, D for their stakeholders, whether the stakeholder is a employee or a client or a dealer or a channel partner or whatever. And probably for the A list people, they might do more personal gatherings, which will be obviously a smaller group of people. So my guess is the first set of events that will happen will be between 50 to 100 people, and then the B list and the C list will also come in slowly.
of course.
But till that time, they will probably do the B and C list with technology, and then show that this is what we did with list A. Now you guys perform more, achieve more, and this is what we can move you from B list to A list and move you to the higher rung of performers. So the company also gains because everybody's motivated to perform better, for a nice trip with a reward and recognition, sort of an award ceremony. And if they perform better, they also make more money. So eventually it's going to come back.
Yes.
So whether it's 12 months or 18 months, but my guess is in that range.
So I appreciate that. And when it comes to the social part, private weddings, I mean, that's always going to be there. I mean, in India, you know,
Yes.
it's probably the number one in the world amount of weddings that happen every week. So
Correct.
I wanted to ask you, with weddings, what's happening in that industry? I remember years ago in India where, especially with the wealthy and large families, there's always this, not in a negative way, but if I could use the word ego, okay?
Yes.
But not in a negative way, in a way of like, you know, we've got to do one better than whatever someone else did. Is that still happening?
It now, of course, nothing is happening.
Okay,
But
yeah.
in principle, that is a very deep-rooted factor in most people's psychology. If you remember, as kids, we are all boasting that my toy is better than yours. When we are young man, we are boasting about certain other things that mine is bigger than yours. I won't specify about what now. But when it comes to girlfriends, we're trying to boast about my girlfriend is better than yours. And that same psychology sort of carries into my son's or daughter's wedding was better than anybody else's. So I think that's probably deep-rooted human psychology. In a way, it's good for our business because it helps us give them new ideas, unique ideas. If they have the budgets, we help them spend those budgets wisely and are able to kind of give them something that nobody else has done before. So it happens, and we try and sort of give them the right direction and let them help their money wisely.
If you take a not maybe not the top of the pyramid, but somewhere in the middle where you've got an ultra high net worth family, in dollar terms, what's the typical expenditure these days for you know, doing all the celebrations and managing the budgets for an Indian wedding?
So typically, the kind of weddings we do are starting at $1 million, where the family is spending $1 million. I mean, I wish I was making $1 million on every wedding, but that's not the case. Yeah. We make a really tiny percentage in that. Yes. Sometimes it could be as low as 3 or 4% of the spends. Right. And if we're lucky, we try and ask for 15%. But with wedding clients, we've realized, since we're dealing with business owners who've come up the hard way, they're extremely shrewd negotiators, and always making sure that they get the best bang for the buck. Yeah. And even though we spend at the Ritz-Carlton or the Mandarin Oriental or the Kempinski, and we pay them top dollar, we negotiate the best deal we could get from them. And the same goes with us. And weddings, like I said, the kind of weddings we're doing are typically start spending anywhere from bare minimum $500,000 without the jewelry and clothes. I'm just talking about hotels and meals and maybe entertainment. But if I add travel and if I add some big stars, it automatically touches $1 million. Yeah. Then if I add the jewelry and the clothes, etc., that they spend and the gifts they give their guests, they could go $1.5–2 million. These would be the normal size wedding. Then there's the ultra rich where money is no object. Like Ambani family, for example, spent $100 million on the wedding, which is no big deal for them.
And do you think it's more than just about the wedding? Because some of these gatherings with 10,000 people plus, it's,
Yeah.
in a way, there's a return on investment angle there as well, isn't it? It's not just all
Yeah.
about your child getting married. You're using the money to connect with people, and there's a business angle here, isn't there?
Of course. So most weddings, one, are a sort of a event where you show your social status, that I have arrived in life and hence I can afford to host you guys in this fancy hotel, in this fancy destination, and so on. Second, they end up calling most of their top clients. And that relationship and the bonding that happens in a personal event like a wedding, that client becomes a client for life. So it's a combination of social, and so many times big business deals are happening at the wedding.
Yeah.
Because there's only that much you can drink and party.
So
And
long as there's one $100 million deal that happens over those 2-3 days, yeah, fantastic. It's a different way of looking at it, because if you take the Western world, compared to Africa, Middle East, Asian families, it's very different, isn't it? I mean, you've done a lot all over the world, but families in the Western world they may not think this way.
Oh, you'll be surprised actually. There's many Russian families, American families, Iran, Saudi Arabia, from the GCC. There's many families who are spending top dollar on celebrations. Like, I met some wedding planners from the US. He did a wedding for 100 people for $25 million. I mean, they had all top artists performing. I mean, each artist was paid like $3 million, $4 million, $5 million to perform at the wedding. I said, okay, I used to feel happy saying I do $1 million weddings. So after that, I want to change my benchmark, and I want to be able to say I do $25 million weddings.
Would you say, because of the type of business you're in, it doesn't matter what somebody wants or how creative it needs to be or what stars you need to get, would you say you can pull it off?
I could easily.
Yeah.
I could get Barack Obama to come and speak at a corporate event, or Bill Clinton, Trump, not now. But I do have a Trump lookalike whom I can get.
Actually, that's a good business, lookalikes. Yeah.
Correct. And I can pretty much get any star from the US or any part of the world, or any Bollywood star. I mean, we literally have first degree of connection with all of them.
So moving into a different direction, what's it like working with your wife? Okay, so what tips can you give others where there's a husband and wife team? Or someone else could be working with their son or their daughter. What are some of the challenges working with other family members?
So since the last 6-7 years, my wife has not been very active in the business. She is a director in the company. She manages the finances. She manages the admin of the company to a great extent, and she gets involved in the HR aspect. She doesn't really get involved in the client pitching and the client thing. But she does act as an influencer because she has a very good social circle. So when she keeps talking, our company is doing this, company is doing that, and the right people are listening to it, then they start saying, okay, listen, we want to meet your husband, and we want to sort of find out if he can help us.
But she's ultimately, she is the boss because she manages the money.
Correct. So, I say that in our relationship, I may be the head, but she's the neck, and she kind of decides where the head turns.
Okay, that's a good analogy. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
And your workforce is the body. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I have a professional CEO. He's been with me from 18 years. Great. Ironically, we will finish 18 years in the next 9 days as Platinum World Group. So this is our anniversary month in a way.
Congratulations.
And my colleague, who's the CEO of the company, has been with me from the day we started. He was the first professional I hired a month before I started the company. And today he's grown with the company. He's, a sweat equity holder. He gets a percentage in the profits of the company's business. And of course now, because of the last 2-3 months of COVID effect on our industry, we've been exploring various options, because we do realize that maybe in the next 12 months, we may not have enough business as far as events go on what we will actually do. So we've been exploring what we can do. So currently we've zeroed in on online education, but focusing on courses pertaining to our experience, our industry. So there's many universities around the world that offer certification courses and graduates, a bachelor's degree and master's degree, and postgraduate degrees in event management and sports event management,
Mhm.
wedding planning, social media marketing, and so on.
Mhm.
So we've thought that we've now have the experience in the last 18 years of having done events in 75 countries.
Mhm.
We've handled more than 500,000 people as a company till date. We have a network in 100 countries now and 500 destinations. Now, if we can sort of combine the knowledge
Yes.
from real industry leaders and put them into capsules of easy to view videos along with course content and put it up online and make it affordable for people who are aspiring to get into the events industry, whichever aspect. We would love to do that. So just today, I've kind of taken a first small step and registered the domain name.
Mhm.
We're going to call it Platinum World Academy from Platinum World Group.
Great.
And we're not restricting ourselves to our domain. We're starting with that, but in time to come, we want to add as many other unique subjects and curriculum which are not easily available in many organized
But this is
universities.
good. I mean, rather than doing someone doing a general degree,
Correct.
where they end up with only one module to do with events or something else linked
Correct.
to marketing, you're taking all of your experience
Correct.
globally and package that online in the right way so you can help others become successful, yes, in your industry, which is
Exactly.
fantastic. So good,
So
good for you.
I will actually have models where people will become a certified event planner for countries. So certified event planner for UAE or certified event planner for Turkey or for a continent. And if they have time in the world, then we have 100 countries we can make them certified event planners for, as long as they have, let's say, 200 weeks to go through it, because it'll be at least 2 weeks per country.
That's great.
Uh,
So going back to the boss of the company
yeah,
of the group. So
yeah,
what tips would you give others, maybe especially husband and wife teams,
yeah, yeah.
in getting that right in a family
Yeah.
business situation? What tips would you give them?
So one is, I think it's very important that responsibilities and roles are clearly demarcated, because when you spend enough time at home and then you spend as much time together at office, there's bound to be overexposure leading to potential conflict.
Mhm.
So if you manage to keep those boundaries, and if you manage to give your spouse or your partner a separate cabinet office, so you're not in your face all the time,
Mhm.
so that would be the first tip. Second tip is, obviously there should be no arguments in a workplace in front of your team members. Whatever arguments has to be in private,
Yes.
so that because eventually the husband wife relationship comes out in any argument. So it's best to keep any discussions or disagreements to be discussed in private. Second, as much as possible, try not bringing work discussions home, because then
That's a difficult one, isn't it?
it's very difficult, to be honest, because personally, like, I can't talk about people or say, so and so person did that or so and so person did this, although many people like to do it, but somehow I am just naturally inclined to talk about ideas.
Mm.
Whether I'm going to do that idea or whether I'm not going to do that idea is something else. But the last 2.5 months or 3 months, many people from my industry are doing Zoom calls, talking to each other, drinking with each other on Zoom, etc. And obviously, a lot of gossip is being circulated. And I have barely gone on to any Zoom calls with any industry colleagues unless it's a very clear work related discussion, or if I'm discussing a one on one and we're brainstorming that how do we, what is the new normal going to be, how do we sort of come out of this mess, and so on. So I've been discussing and exploring ideas from hydroponic farming
Mhm.
to healthcare services at home, to making high-tech drones for firefighting and law enforcement,
Mhm.
to online education. These were the four things that I personally explored in the last 2.5 months, you can say. And I loved healthcare at home. I loved hydroponic farming. Uh, and healthcare at home is obviously extremely lucrative. It's a service that is much needed in a country like India, especially right now in Mumbai. If you get COVID and you try to get a bed in a hospital, there's no bed.
Mm.
All hospitals, the best ones in the city, are running overfull right now. So it's a good time to stay healthy. It's a great time to launch an idea where you provide healthcare at home, including a full ICU with trained nurses and doctors in attendance in the comforts of your
Yeah, I
house.
can see. I can obviously, nothing's changed from 15 years ago when I met you, because your business ideas are flowing, and you've already uh, gone off to another tangent after I've been asking you questions about your wife. So, but the tips around just
Yeah,
concluding around giving each other space, clear job
correct,
roles, having
correct,
some clear ground rules of when you're talking family,
correct,
when you're talking business. Yeah.
correct, correct.
Can I ask you, with your children? I know
Yeah,
the eldest is what, 14.
14, yes.
What's your plans there when you think about your legacy for the future with your children?
So I've told my children that I'm going to give them the best education money can buy. I said, you're my responsibility till you're 23. That is, you finish your graduation, you finish your master's in whatever field you choose to do. I'm not forcing you to join my business. I hope that I'm able to sell my business for a few $100 million by the time you all finish your master's and I can retire, and you choose to start your own path, whatever it is that you want to pursue. So from the time in the last 3-4 years, I've been asking my daughter, what is it that you want to do?
Mhm.
So she started from being an artist to being a singer to currently, it's complicated.
Yeah,
Because now she wants to be a TikTok influencer, a YouTube influencer.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
there's definitely going to be a few of these young kids who are
Correct,
end up
exactly.
building great businesses off the back of some of those
Yeah,
platforms.
yeah. And my son is still too young. He's just about 7. But I've already sort of mentally programmed him that every time we play games with each other, I said, so these are the cars I like, that which I would like it if you buy me when you grow up, and he can already rattle out the names that he's going to buy me: a Bugatti, a Bentley, a Rolls Royce.
Mhm.
Not me buying him, but him buying me
Mhm.
whenever he grows up and makes money. Now that's another thing, that when he goes out to make money and then he realizes how much a Bentley or a Bugatti is
Yeah,
going
can
to
I
be
ask
worth.
you a serious question there, which is,
Yeah,
it's a bit of a concern as well. Okay,
yeah,
there's two versions here, which is
yeah,
with social media.
yeah,
Okay, there's a lot of people, showing the bling on a regular basis.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
so young kids get influenced thinking maybe that's what life is all about.
correct.
And we know as entrepreneurs, it is about
Yeah,
purpose. It's about passion,
correct,
fulfillment, doing good, building something, the joy of doing projects.
correct, correct.
So how do you overcome that with a? And he's not, by the way. I've come across many cases where your son, it's like
Yeah,
a replica going on in other families right now. Okay,
correct. Exactly.
this alpha generation. So
Yeah,
what's your thoughts around getting that balance right?
yeah. So what we tell them, especially in the last 2 months, the one thing that I try, my son is a little too young to understand this, but my daughter understands it. And I tell them, I said, life is very simple and inexpensive. It's lifestyle that is complicated and extremely expensive. So, I mean, you don't need too much to have a comfortable life, a nice home, nice car down, staff to take care of your needs. And if you don't have staff, you take care of your own needs. So I said, life can be very simple, and you don't need a single thing to be happy except the choice that I want to be happy. And we're very grounded in that sense and very spiritual. So every day while we sleep, we're almost listening to a 28-minute video on YouTube, which is all about I am affirmations. And it pretty much covers the entire gamut of all the affirmations you would want in life, from I am happy to I'm healthy and so on. 3 days ago, we saw the movie The Secret.
Mhm.
Even though I had seen it before, I kind of saw it again. It was a refresher course for me as well.
Mhm.
And I saw it with both my kids so that they also understand that all you need, you can achieve as long as you're able to visualize it clearly, want it, you're passionate about it. And I keep telling them that pursue your passion. Just give me one sec if you don't mind. Just one sec. Sorry, I'm just going to, I don't know in your edit how you can.
That's okay.
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So as much as possible, I tell them that, whatever you want, you can achieve. And it's very important that if you don't have anything, and thankfully in Bombay, you're blessed with enough people who are living below the poverty line, living in slums. And when you drive by them, you will always see the children there playing, happy, laughing.
That's right.
Very rarely you'll see a site where they're crying and they have nothing. They don't even have a decent house or a roof. They're living in a slum. And I do show it to them each time. I said, see, you don't need anything to be happy. You just need the right attitude. So that's the part I help them balance. But at the same time, I try to keep their ambitious streak sort of going. Because if you ask me, I started from a garage office 18 years ago uh, with a capital of 5 lakh rupees. Today, I'm living in a beautiful home. I have the best cars down in the garage. I have enough staff at home. I have a driver. I have a beautiful office, all of it owned. And I still feel, I'm content in life.
Mm.
I'm very happy with what I've achieved, but it doesn't stop me from aspiring to achieve more. Because for me, life is a journey. The minute I feel I'm done and I have nothing more to achieve, then I feel I'll kind of reach a vegetative state of existence, and
But
I'm
would you
not
say,
ready.
you know, when you get to that level of consciousness, it's not
Yes,
necessarily about the next car. You know,
correct.
it's not, is it? It's, I mean,
Yeah,
most of the billionaires I've worked with who are running very large family businesses, you know, they all get to some point where it's always about the next deal. It's about the next transaction. It's about the next thing that they can develop or create. Um,
correct.
and that's it, because, you know, like with your yacht business that you have, there's only so many yachts you can be in at any moment in time, and that's one.
Correct.
You know?
Exactly.
But it reminds me, Sushil, of a story many years ago where I was with a Next Gen member,
Yeah.
very wealthy family. He had a fleet of Ferraris. Okay,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, you know, how many do you need?
Yeah.
He
Need
goes, it's
one.
not about needing. He
Yeah.
goes, he had a passion for sports
Correct.
cars.
Correct.
He knew everything about the uniqueness of each of these Ferraris.
Correct. Correct.
And he said, look, at the end of the day, if I buy one of these, whatever the
Yeah.
price is,
Yeah.
even if it's a unique special edition where there's only few of them available in the entire world,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm indirectly looking after 400-500 people that may have been involved
Very true.
in creating one of those and making it for me. And that gave me
Absolutely.
a really different perspective that day, which is okay.
Right.
There are different types of people, ones who are driven by greed or material things and ego,
Correct.
while there's
Correct.
others that have absolute appreciation for what they have around.
Correct. And if you ask me, I share that sentiment. In fact, when I apply to large weddings, many people think that people are spending an obnoxious sum of money on weddings, on celebrating a union of two people. And I tell them, I said, don't look at what you're spending. Look at the few hundred or few thousand people who are going to get direct and indirect employment thanks to your wedding. I mean, if you're doing it in your own city and you're doing it in a school ground or a stadium, there's a few thousand people from the decorators team who are daily wage earners who are getting a job out of that wedding. They're daily wage earners from the few hundred team members of a catering team. There'll be generator suppliers. There'll be the event managers team. There'll be, even the wedding band. They are all daily wage earners at the end of the day. And they are all getting employed. So eventually, if you're spending $1 million, you're effectively helping close to 3 or 4 thousand families
Yeah.
earn a daily living. So, and government should, in my opinion, encourage such weddings, because the cash component of the economy is kind of coming in to these people who need it. And the
So, there,
same thing
so,
applies
so
to
there are
any
definitely
products.
lots of benefits there. I wanted
Correct.
to ask you, with your children, doesn't matter how young they are. We've come across many cases where the legacy continues when the next generation have a chance to know what their parents are doing, what their parents' business is about. So,
Correct.
what exposure have they had with Platinum World Group so far?
So, to be honest, like in the last 2.5 months, a lot more than before that, because they have full-time school and I don't want to distract them from the school yet. My son has just gone to his second grade from July, and my daughter will go to a ninth grade. But I have been talking to them that what business you think I should start as a new business, whether should it be online education, should it be healthcare at home, should it be hydroponic farming, because these are the three things the consumption never stopped when we were all in lockdown.
Right.
We all had fruits and vegetables being consumed almost on a daily basis. My kids were doing their schooling online almost on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And we all were having some form of medication, etc., almost on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So I said, these businesses seem like they're pandemic proof. Although their understanding of the business is not so much, I keep explaining to them. My daughter understands it a bit more than my son. So she said, yeah, healthcare at home, I think will have a lot more demand right now because, hospitals are running full and people are falling sick. And tomorrow from 8th, Bombay is kind of opening lockdown to a great extent. So there's expected to be a spurt in cases here.
Mm.
And which means hospitals are already overflowing and they've set up temporary hospitals. So she said, start that. I'm like, I'm not from that background. She knows the events business, of course, because they get the benefits of all the beautiful vacations, which I get invited for from the beautiful hotels, thanks to me giving them a lot of business. So they know that that business is really sexy and exciting. And they say that I should continue that business. And maybe they'll join it, maybe they won't. At this stage, I'm not telling them to join it because I don't know whether I would want them to join it. Maybe they might have a far better idea with all the education that they might endure as part of their career.
Mm.
For me, I was technically just a graduate in hotel management, and it was not even a degree, it was a diploma.
Mm.
The degree started 2 years after I passed out. But at least for my children's case, I'm hoping that they get proper education up till their masters. And I keep telling them literally every day, especially my daughter right now, and she keeps thinking that I'm lecturing her almost on a daily basis. She's, Dad, I'm 14, let me be.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, the legacies, the research we've done, in our new
Yeah,
book, where legacies continue for over 100 years,
yeah,
there's always a connection, somewhere. So some cases, kids may go down their own path, but then come back to
correct,
what the forefathers or the founders
correct,
had started. In other
correct,
cases, they may do their own thing, but they can still be a director or an owner,
correct,
of the
correct.
business. And then, like you said earlier, you've got other people who you're
Yeah,
starting to give equity to or partners. So family
correct,
now is not just your bloodline. Family could
correct,
also mean other things
correct,
with other
exactly,
people. So these are loads of
correct,
things to consider. I think once you're ready to create your family constitution and family charter, I'm going to be
correct.
there for you. But when I need a yacht charter and get my kids married, I know who to come to.
I'm going to be there for you.
Can I, on a different tangent, there's always, we've talked about success and what you've done, but there's also lessons in with mistakes. So what's
Yeah.
been the biggest entrepreneurial mistakes that you've made?
I've actually had quite a few entrepreneurial failures also, I would say. Before I ventured into events and moved to Mumbai while I was with my father's restaurant business, I started a business selling processed food products like pickles and fruit pulps and jams, etc. It was a miserable failure. In one full year, I tried it. So I shut shop and moved on. Then I got into a business of selling diesel generators for big factories and industries in Karnataka at that time, where there was a huge power shortage. It did extremely well for 2 years. I must have been negotiating projects for 20 megawatts and so on with engineers. And they asked me, where have you done your engineering? I said, I did my hotel management and not engineering. But I reached to a very great level. And then there was like a whole economic downturn and that business also went kaput. Then I got into something sort of exporting towels, terry towels that we used to wipe ourselves. There was a big company close to Belgaum. So they had a lot of surplus, almost some 8-10 containers. I pretty much bought over everything, sold. That also did well till stocks lasted. And then Mumbai happened and the true calling was in the events business. In the last 4 years, I attempted 2 new ventures. In 2016, I attempted a venture called the storehunt.com, which was like a retail tech venture. It was it was positioned to be like Airbnb for retail spaces, where any brand could find a space to do a pop-up store, whether it's in a mall or in a theater or in an office complex, a school, hospital,
So
college.
in the last 19 years, how many ventures would you say you've tried and failed? And then how many have succeeded?
So in the last 19 years, I would say three.
Yeah.
But in the last 25 years or 27 years, because I've been pretty much trying to do something on my own from the time I got married, which is 27 years now. So in the last 27 years, I would say, if I count my father's business of restaurants, processed food, generators, towels, events, retail tech, and furniture.
Yeah.
7 in total, out of which the events business has been a success.
Yeah.
And the
And
generators
what's,
was
and what's interesting about what you've just said there is that the event side, hospitality side, is where the passion has been.
Correct. I don't feel I work for a day then.
Yeah. So all those others were just you being entrepreneurial, seeing opportunities and thinking, let me go for it. Because a lot of entrepreneurs fall into this trap, and then it's like a cycle, and then they end up back into their core again.
Exactly. And that's actually a big concern. So this causes me to take a lot more time to think. So when I told you that I'm now looking at online education, I'm still going 2 steps forward, 2 steps backward, particularly in that decision, because I'm very wary of the fact that after all these years of experience, I don't want to make the mistake of chasing money anymore. I want to chase my passion. I want to chase excellence, and I want to let money chase me. But so far, I'm not certain whether I'm passionate about education. But maybe when I start teaching, I will get passionate about it, because I have, as a company in events business, I've created some wonderful leaders who've gone on to start their own event companies and become extremely successful. So I know that I was able to create good leaders. Now, whether can I apply that into the education business and teach my experience of the events business with the same passion, and it won't be just me teaching, because I'm going to get my partners from 100 countries also to do master classes for the students they sign up. Same way, whether it's the healthcare at home business, I know nothing about that. I mean, I'm not a doctor. Ideally, you need to be a doctor, and then you start the business. It makes a lot of sense.
See, the structures that we've seen work like that is where the entrepreneur has the core,
correct,
builds the dream team, is no longer in the business, but is now on the business or a director, knows that they're getting there because that's the cash cow. They know they're getting their dividends from there, which flows back to the Wadhwa family office. And from there, because you've got time now to think, whether it's supporting the existing business with add-ons or incubating new things or diversifying, you've essentially become an investor.
Correct.
So a lot of entrepreneurs go down that path, which is very successful. But it's making that decision. Am I in and expand this and take it to a $200-400 million business like you were talking earlier? Or, no, I've got it up to this level. It's giving me a fantastic paycheck at the end of every year. Going back to the family, but now I want to go and use that in different ways.
Correct. Exactly. So what I'm ideally trying to do is I'm trying to sort of buy into a stake with a company that has just started, say, for example, in the healthcare business. In the education business, so far, I haven't found the right player yet, because there's nothing like this that's currently in the market. I mean, there are event management courses and wedding planning courses, but none of them online in India.
Yes.
So that's something we might have to probably acquire skills from there. And I know we have the next 12 months where we may not have any worthwhile event. I mean, it's literally come down to the fact that today in the news, I read that weddings have come down to 1.5 lakh rupee packages. Now, 1.5 lakh rupee is like $2,000 package.
Wow.
From $1 million.
Have you come across is there any virtual weddings happening?
They did actually a couple of weddings that happened virtually, and they also had small weddings with 50 people.
Yeah.
But it's like after you've done your MBA and your graduation and your double masters, and then you have to go and do your first grade and second grade again. So personally, it does not interest me commercially as a business. If I'm doing it as a charity for somebody and they can't afford doing a wedding, then I do it. It's okay. Then I have a CSR angle to it. But just for doing weddings for the sake of doing weddings where you don't make money doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
For me, business, the number one goal is to make profits, because if I make profits, can I do CSR?
Correct.
Or charity?
Well, I think, based on what you said right at the beginning, I think in your industry, One just has to hang in there for,
Yes,
for the latter part of this year. I know a lot of people are talking about just postponing their events to the end of this year. You know,
correct. Yeah,
we've had a few where clients need us for certain meetings live rather than
yeah,
just on virtually, and they're now booking things into around November period onwards. So I
yeah.
think that you are going to end up, in my opinion, having a boom time next year. So get ready for it. But I also believe that technology um, has to be a key part of any
Yes,
business for the future.
correct. To
As
be
some,
honest,
yeah, go ahead.
like you rightly said, the technology of video calling or web streaming has been around almost 10 years now. Like we did live streaming of weddings 10 years ago. It's just for many people who couldn't come, especially for destination weddings or for the elders who didn't want to come out. It's just going to be much faster now because the internet is better and much faster. And obviously the acceptance of video streaming of events, etc., is catching on a lot more thanks to being indoors and being in lockdown. So it's I would call it consumption of video content. If you see, there's so many Insta lives that have become commonplace. uh, you literally like flipping channels when you're on Insta live. You keep flipping right or left between the 10 Insta lives that may be happening on your Insta gallery. Facebook, for some reason, the live has not become as popular as Insta live.
Mm,
Zoom, of course, webinars have become so popular right now.
that's right.
On an average, every day, I'm sure there must be a few thousand webinars happening every week.
Well, I think there's a problem there as well. You know, you know, having as a speaker where I'm getting involved in webinars every week for whether it's our programs or working with clients and
Yeah,
organizers, I
yeah,
feel, you know, because everyone had to do it, there was a bombardment of webinars. And now if you look at the real numbers, the
correct,
numbers are coming down on any live webinar. So I think
correct.
my opinion on it, it's all about niche areas. If you can take niche areas and
Yeah,
you've got a core community that
yes,
come on that journey on a regular basis, that's more powerful than just another webinar.
correct, exactly. And also, many people are doing it just to stay visible, to stay relevant in the industry.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's a good strategy, bad strategy. Is it a sign of insecurity? I honestly don't know. Uh, for me, I wanted to do something very limited, which is not overexposing myself also online, whether it's Insta Live, because I do have a fairly active presence on social media. In fact, one thing I forgot to mention in our conversation, I'm now signing up as a content creator with an agency that will actively pitch me to brands.
Mm,
So my YouTube channel, which is Platinum World TV, is now crossed 1 million views across the videos we
congratulations.
have there. Our subscriber base is growing. I've got a show called Celebrating Life with Sushil Shamlal Wadhwa. And there I'm kind of positioning myself as the luxury lifestyle and luxury travel authority, or a
Well,
celebration
that's where this
story.
picture's from, isn't it? At the bottom
Exactly.
right
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
is
All
one
these
of your
pictures are
shows.
from the episode.
So yeah, I mean, we'll make sure that for the viewers that if you
Yeah,
just go down to the bottom in the description area, you'll see all the details for connecting with Sushil and his companies as well, with Platinum, the YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, his Insta
correct.
handle, so you can
Yeah,
connect and find out more. But I think I'm looking forward to maybe doing a part 2 to this interview, maybe end of this year, just to
sure.
see, you know, what happens with our journeys after this coronavirus and pandemic, and how
Sure.
your mice business with so many other sub areas, what happens. It's going to be
Yeah,
fascinating to see,
correct.
but I think, you know, I know we're almost out of time here today, but I wanted to ask you, Sushil, just for maybe a few tips for anyone organizing any event virtually or live for the
Yeah,
future. With your vast experience, what would be some tips for them, you know, to
yeah.
make sure things go well?
So the number one tip I will tell them is hire me.
Okay, fine, done. Right
All of
after
them.
that, what about some things they've got to do before they hire you? You know, there could be a
Okay.
learning there.
Okay. So one is, that hire me, of course, if they want to. But in general, depending on what event or webinar or online session they want to host, first be clear about the objective. What is the objective that you want to achieve or convey through that event? Second, be clear about your target audience. Who's the target audience you want to reach out to? And then marketing that event effectively to the target audience, whether you want to use email marketing, you want to use social media marketing, you want to use Google AdWords or whatever it is, depending on the scale of the event, making sure that's right, because you can have a webinar, but you don't have a large enough audience, then it's just pointless and you feel demotivated at the end of it. So these three, and then I would say at the end of your event, have key takeaways that people who attend the event are able to sort of memorize as bullet points in their head, like for me, these four would be the key takeaways. And then after that, the last one is post your event, your follow-up, your thank you for attending my webinar or thank you for attending my event, a nice note going to them. And then your post-event, coverage online, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or wherever it is that you post. If I would say if a combination of this is done correctly, now somewhere in between, your objective will help you realize what speakers you need, what content you need to create, what entertainers you need to get if you want to get. All of these would be part of that. Thankfully, in virtual events, there's no catering that you have to worry about. But there are certain softwares we're working on right now where you can literally have virtual backgrounds with the company logo or the logo of the event. So it almost feels like you're attending a real venue, but virtually, with the banners and branding and everything.
Yeah, I saw one of those just a few weeks ago.
Then hire me.
Yeah, I saw one of those a few weeks ago where it was like the auditorium or a concert theater. And people book in, their picture
the virtual avatars or something
shows
like
up on that seat. It's just fascinating where things are going with technology. But those are some really good tips. The other question I've got, and then we'll sort of wrap up, is you stayed at 1,200 hotels, yeah?
Yes.
Or room nights at various branded hotels around the world. I'm very jealous because I love hotels, love staying at hotels. And I want to know what's your favorite. What's your favorite city, destination, best hotel? Which one is it for you?
That's a very tough question because I don't have one favorite. I have many favorites.
What's your top three then?
15, 20. So let's say city-wise, some of my favorite cities worldwide, Barcelona counts pretty much on top of the list where we met. Istanbul, Paris, if you ask me, Dubai, Bangkok, these for sure. And then south of France, so Cannes, for example, is again one of my favorite cities. Monaco. In terms of hotel chains, I probably missed out a few cities, I can tell you already. Hotel chains, I would say I'm a complete luxury traveler, spoiled for choice. So whether it's the Four Seasons or Mandarin Oriental or Ritz-Carlton, St. Regis, W when I want something different, Belmont, Shangri-La. In India, I would say between the Oberoi and Taj, they are my all-time favorites. Yeah. These would be my top favorite brands. And then you go a little lower and you go to say a JW Marriott or a Westin, but it again is very location specific. And
is your view, because you're an expert in this industry, is your view different to the normal person who goes to a five-star hotel? When you walk in, because you've been to so many and stayed there, is your view different? What do you look for when you visit a new hotel? Have you got your checklist?
So I actually do. And I have a very, sharp eye or eagle's eye. When something is not in place, it kind of jumps out and presents itself to me. Many five-star hotels, like let's say we just finished a wedding in Dubai in February at the Kempinski Emerald Palace. Absolute epitome of luxury as far as the hotel goes. They spent 700 million euros to make the hotel, but they don't have an iron and ironing board in every room. They give it on demand. And for me, it's come to be a standard. It has to be in the room.
Right.
And this is we're a resort. Not too many people come here to iron their clothes. They just give it to room service. So they just, and when we did a wedding and we had like 150 rooms, they didn't have 150 iron and ironing boards in the room.
Got it.
So that's one small example. But, let's say I was on the Asia Pacific Advisory Board for Starwood Hotels before Marriott acquired Saud Hotels for some $14 billion.
Mhm.
So at that time, I was regularly, I was the first Indian to be on that advisory board.
Fantastic.
And I had the other advisory board members who were company owners like me from different countries, whether it was China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, and so on. Pretty much all countries across Asia Pacific. So we were like the mystery guests for the hotel, where they would ask us everything from how easy is it to open the soap wrapper when you go into the bathroom, and how easy is it to, because many hotels when you go, you sometimes struggle to put off one particular light which might be above the mini bar. You just can't seem to find the damn button, right? I'm like, you pretty much tinker with all the buttons and you call the housekeeping person, this one light, where is the button? So all these inputs that kind of go into that, and the whole process from check-in to how much time the bellboy takes to get your luggage to your room, when you order sort of a turn down service to the housekeeping, how soon and how effectively it is done. When you give your clothes for laundry, how's the process, room service, restaurants, the cleanliness of public spaces, public toilets, even in the rooms of hotels. I literally see sometimes under the desk also have they cleaned it up, because it's very easy to kind of clean what is very obvious, but there's always be some corners and crevices in the room that don't get cleaned and dusted. And especially now after COVID, I'm guessing they're not only going to clean and dust it, they're going to sanitize every corner of the room, because you never know who must
Well,
have
I hope that that's something that continues for the future and becomes part of a standard operating procedure, and not, we just do it for a year, 2 years, get the vaccine, and then everyone goes back to their old habits again.
Correct.
So, these are things we got to. I love your list. I think hopefully, our viewers have been left with some good insights, some good ideas. They got to know your story a little bit more. They know who to reach now when it comes to any types of events globally. And I really want to appreciate you and your time and our friendship the last 15 years and staying in touch. And I look forward to hosting you and your family in Dubai once you can travel over here again, or when we come and see you in India.
In September, I'm able to do that.
Yeah. So for those of you still stuck around to the end, thank you very much. Go down to the bottom for more details, hit the subscribe button, leave your comments as well, and let us know what you think about the interview. And on that note, Sushil, I really want to thank you for your time once again, and stay safe, and we'll catch up again soon, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Reg. Just a parting note, if anybody wants to look for me on Instagram, I'm available with my full name everywhere, or if they can just search hashtag Sushil Media. So my social media is Sushil Media, SUSHILMEDIA, and I'm the only one using that hashtag. Awesome. So my posts and my profile will show up, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere.
Love it. Well, thank you very much, Sushil. Thanks a lot. Take care, and we'll catch up soon. Yeah, bye for now.
It was wonderful chatting with you. Looking forward to doing this again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.